Welcome to Shorty SuperCoach, and today we're going to preview my Cats. As you all probably know, I'm a very keen Geelong supporter, and today we're going to have a bit of a look at everything they've got to offer us in SuperCoach land for 2017. And if you haven't tuned into these before, it's just where we take a fairly broad look at everything SuperCoach for each club. Not necessarily obvious picks, but just some guys that should be on your radar, potential breakout players. Don't really look at draftees just yet. As we all know, it's late in December, so there's no real reason to get real in-depth on your absolute structures, and draftees will reveal themselves, as will rookies, and we all know the best players in the comp. So just a bit of a discussion piece on some players that should be on your radar. And to be honest, Geelong don't have a stack really. Their prices and SuperCoach relevance probably represents where they're at as a club. They've got a lot of players that are reasonably poised in their careers but need to take the next step, which leaves a lot of our promising players in awkwardly priced ranges and really no great dual position players. So I'm going to start with the obvious, despite the fact I said we don't talk about the obvious here. I think Dangerfield always warrants discussion, also for the fact that I probably have a differing view to most. Will I be picking him in 2017? No, I won't. He's priced at a whopping $717,000, and for good reason. He averaged 131.8, won a Brownlow, absolutely dominant year, one of the best years anyone's really put together, and he was one of the few that could hold his head up high in that shocking prelim final loss to Sydney. It was a fantastic season, and that's pretty well reflected in what his price will be and what we're going to have to pay for him next year. Now, I understand the argument of just pick him. He's the best player in the comp. Yes, it's a big price tag, but we can whack the C on him. We can put the VC on him week after week, and it's not just his 125, 130, but it's turning those into the 260s, 270s that makes him valuable and worth paying the price tag. I understand that argument, no doubt, but I just can't justify paying that much. Now, he's going to drop in price, there's no doubt about it. He may drop 50k, he may drop 150k. I just think at that price there is so much room to fall that to pick him, yes, I understand the great scores he will produce, but I honestly feel that he's no Gary Ablett. I know he's a superstar, but it's yet to be seen whether Dangerfield's going to be the greatest player of all time. Ablett started putting together a case where he was one in a decade sort of player, and we just had to lap it up and pay the price tag because he's one of the greats of the game. Is Dangerfield that good yet? Unsure. He obviously had a fantastic season, but he could well drop back to averaging 115, which is extremely good. But I would be surprised if we saw a 125 plus average. I'd probably expect to see somewhere in the 115 to 120, which would put him right up in the top 5 mids, if not in the whole comp, which is fantastic. But I just think there's options through our midfield that are perhaps 50 to 60, maybe even 100k cheaper, that could average around that 115 mark. Now, I think there's guys that will offer you good enough captaincy options. You know, your Pendleburys, your Hannaburys, maybe even Treloar, which I've spoken about, who is far cheaper. You know, there's definitely a few guys putting their hands up there. I just think it's a massive sort of price to put into one player. I understand if you are picking him, because obviously you can just bank it. You don't have to worry about getting him in throughout the season. You know, it's difficult to get them in sometimes, especially early when you got to generate cash, and if he does start like a house on fire. But I just feel that he's got so much room to drop. I'm prepared to take that risk and hope that he has a quieter game in the first month, maybe even 2. And by quieter, I mean 90 to 100. You know, it's not a bad game, but that'll see him drop, especially if he has a 90 and 102. You know, he'll certainly drop a reasonable way. You know, if you miss out on a 150 or two, so be it. I think if you can save 150k, which would probably be unlikely, you know, you wouldn't think he'd drop too far below 600,000, but if you can save a little bit of money and, you know, perhaps pick someone that is 60,000 cheaper and going to do a similar job, well, I think that's what I'll be aiming for. So I won't be starting him with him in 2017, which may surprise some, given I'm a Geelong supporter and love Paddy and everything he's done for the Cats, but I just cannot justify myself spending so much money on the one man when I feel that he could be a potential upgrade target early in the season. So you may disagree with me there. If you do, certainly let me know, and it'll be good to discuss, but at this point in time I couldn't see myself picking Paddy Dangerfield. As for the Cats and the rest of their options, there's not a stack really. As I mentioned off the top, they've got a lot of guys averaging around your low 80s to low 90s who are quite nice players, perhaps capable of taking the next step, perhaps been to the next step and on the decline. But I don't think there's a stack of breakout contenders. You know, I feel like Mitch Duncan could take his game to the next level. Guthrie probably could as well if they had some genuine consistency, but I don't think any of those guys are going to warrant selection because they're not going to be top 12 mids. They're more your draft selections late in the draft that you might be able to steal. I'm going to look at a couple of halfback flankers. I'm going to start off with Jackson Thurlow, one of my favourite Cats. Of course, he missed last season with a knee injury, which, unless you follow Geelong closely, you wouldn't have realised how much that hurt us. His drive off the back line, albeit he's only played the 20-something games, 29 games, we missed it a lot. He's a beautiful kick, a beautiful user of the ball, and he's a nice height and 190 centimetres. I think most definitely he's the replacement for Enright, and it'll all be about how he returns from that knee. So I think monitor him. In 2015 he averaged 70.3, but he just showed signs. He had a few tons and just showed ability that he would definitely, as time went on, be able to produce extremely good rebound from defence and be the sort of guy that we like to have the ball in his hand and be that designated user out of the back line, which is something Geelong's really lacked. I know Enright's a good player, but he hasn't got a penetrating kick or pace. Of course, he's retired now, and since your Milburns and even Josh Hunt, we've really lacked that. So I think Thurlow could definitely be the guy who really fills that void. Of course, if his recovery's a bit slow, then you might be a bit wary. Also, it's an awkward price tag, no doubt about that. He's priced at 267,000. You can pick him up as a defender, and I definitely think he can make you a fair bit of money. I would certainly see an average of over 80, but he probably isn't going to go high enough to make you quick cash. So you're probably going to only have him in your sort of D5 or something like that. He's probably going to be unique, but I feel like, being a Geelong supporter, I've seen him come through the ranks. I know what he's about. I definitely think he'll be a guy we have on our radar in the future. He's priced reasonably. Monitored his pre-season, no doubt. But at this stage, I'll be probably saying no. As I've said in a few podcasts, there are a lot of good defensive options this year, and certainly a few discounted ones as well, with the likes of Hartlett and Hibbard as well. So we're not absolutely short for options, and I suppose the likely argument is, well, Shorty, why don't I just go Andrew McGrath, who's in form, a gun, going to get opportunity, and he's 60k cheaper. I couldn't argue with that, really. I just am a fan of Thurlow, and I think he'd be a player for the future, and if he set a light on the pre-season, then he might be considered. But at this stage, he's going to have to impress. But one man that I think will be making a lot of teams, and rightfully so, will be Aaron Black. Now, he's priced at 137,000. Of course, he's had 24 months of tough footy in the AFL world. Only played the 3 games, none last year. A combination of falling out of favour at North Melbourne, of course falling behind the likes of Ben Brown, Mason Wood, Magic Door, and of course Jared Waite filling a key post in that North Melbourne forward line. Black also suffered a fair few injuries. I know he was derailed last year with an ankle injury after playing some VFL football. He showed signs that he's quite a neat player, goal kicker. he's priced around 137,000, so it's definitely affordable. He's a nice height, but the biggest thing is that there's an opportunity there for him at Geelong. We've got rid of Kirsten, we've got rid of Vardy, we've got rid of Clark, we've recruited him with a role in mind. That second tall option that can be a target to take the heat off Hawkins. So it's definitely a specific choice to go after him. There's a couple of drafties that'll be hoping to push for selection as well, but no doubt with Black's experience at AFL level, he'll be the one who, especially early, will be pressing the hardest because he's been there, he's shown what he can do, and he's physically ready, if he can get his body right, that is. Now, in 2013, that was his breakout season, played the 18 games, kicked 33 goals, averaged 76.6 that season. That's his career high. It's nothing special, but if we can get somewhere around that 70 mark and he plays consistent games, cements himself in the Cats 22, then he's going to make you some nice money. And in 2014 he backed that up with 26 goals from the 25 games, I think it was. So, you know, certainly a bloke who's more than capable of producing goals. He is quite a nice kick, that's for sure, and I think there's definitely a role there at Geelong. I mean, as a Cats fan, you know, you definitely know your list pretty well, and I know that he is a chance to definitely play some footy, especially early. As with anybody, he'll need to impress through the pre-season and keep his body right, but if he can do that, I reckon he'll get first crack at it. I definitely reckon he'll get first crack and provide that chop out for Tommy Hawkins, which from a Geelong point of view is definitely overdue. So that probably wraps it up for the Cats, to be honest. I suppose, you know, honourable mentions to Nakia Cockatoo. I think he's definitely a guy who could break out to an extent, but as I've said with a couple other Cats, he's just too awkwardly priced, I think. I just don't think you could pick him. He's not going to explode, I wouldn't have thought. I mean, you could definitely see his points jump up a reasonable amount, but probably not enough to select him. And Zach Tui will also probably attract a little bit of interest given he's changed clubs. He's got a lovely highlights reel with his rebound and defence and long goals, and the Cats' need for a running defender, as I just mentioned, with Thurlow. So I guess when you hear me say all that, then why is he only getting an honourable mention? Well, he averaged 81.5 last year. He's priced at 443, and that's his career high, 81.5, 20 touches per game. He's not a big ball winner, and I just don't see him getting unbelievably better from what he's done. You know, he's not new on the block. He's been around the scene for a while. He has impact with his touches, and he's a nice long kick and all that, but I'm not sure he's a huge possession getter. Will that change with his role in Geelong? You know, he's competing against Doherty and Simpson and Yarram when he was there on the half-back flank. Will he be a beneficiary of more opportunity on the half-back line? That could potentially happen for sure, but I think it would definitely take a lot of guts to pick him and a lot of convincing over the pre-season. We definitely need to see him be in that exact role where the Cats are giving him the ball on the exit from the back line and we're using him frequently. He's playing on from the kick out and getting easy points. We need a lot of elements to come into play to really pick him. I suppose you can keep him on your radar. That's what these podcasts are about, but I'd be wary. I mean, it takes a lot for a guy to just all of a sudden jump his average by 15, and that's on his career best season so far. For a lot of his time, he's probably averaged around the 70 to 80. So we definitely need a whopping increase of at least 15 points on what was probably his career best season last year. So we'll wait and see on Zach there. Of course, like Black, the opportunity is there, so let's see if he can grasp it and really cement himself at AFL level and in his new side. So a few options there for the Cats. Not a stack that I'd be jumping at with real excitement. Certainly Dangerfield will certainly be one that we debate whether you can pick him. You know, it's always interesting with the highest priced player. You know, he's always the gun player of the competition because he's priced highest and average highest. Do you just pick him? Is it a no-brainer? Do you try and wait until he drops in price a bit? It's the age-old debate. Do you wait and upgrade him? It's always difficult, but you can benefit from him. Or do you just bite the bullet and pay the price. I'd like to hear your views on it anyway. We'll certainly discuss those more intricate tactics as the pre-season grows on and we get into the new year. But nonetheless, I'll be back having a look at the Gold Coast Suns shortly. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to give it a like, subscribe as always. Hopefully we can push past the 350 subscribers mark pretty soon, and always good to hear a comment as well. If you disagreed or you agreed or you like what I'm doing, I'm keen to hear any of it. I always get back and reply to these comments as soon as I can. So I appreciate you tuning in, guys, and I'll catch you soon.